everybody. We are here with a bonus episode today. I have the whole crew. If everybody wants to go around and just say, hey.
Hey, y'all. Hey, it's your girl, Marcia.
All right.
Hey, y'all. It's Ashley.
Hi, it's Alani.
And bringing up the rear, it's Susan with her raggedy voice.
Oh, stop.
I own this voice, so let's make the best of it.
Amen.
Absolutely.
This is Alani's first time with us, so woohoo!
You're going to be great.
I told you you'd get here. I told you. All right, so today was just an impromptu. So we're going to talk about something that hit Susan pretty hard this week from, in a good way, from the most recent blog. So if you have not registered and subscribed, then go to improductions.us and subscribe to the blog. But the name of the blog is Love Wins. So Susan, I'm going to pass it over to you to just start talking about what struck you.
I read Joy's blog on Love Wins, and there was one phrase, and it was the simplest of phrases, only 4 words with the with a very, very large impact. It was difficult, is not impossible. And I had emailed Joy immediately, and I said, Joy, we're on to something. Difficult is not impossible. I said, I need to ruminate on this.
Right.
And I wanted to explore it and write about it, which I will do after we're done. But it had got me to think about why this hit me so hard. And it spoke to me. One of the thoughts I thought about was, what is the connotation of the word difficult?
Right.
So if we just tell me what y'all think about the word difficult.
Yeah, like what comes to mind?
What comes to mind to me is having a situation where you think that there's not going to be any light at the end of the tunnel. Like, it comes with a lot of stress. It comes with a lot of anxiety. And you just feel like you will never get to that place or never, see the light. That's how I think about difficulty. And I have a really, I have an experience that I would like to share.
Yeah.
I had told Joy before I came in here that this was a topic that I didn't, typically I like to review what I'm going to talk about first before I get in here. So just off the top of my head, when she said, oh, we're going to podcast, I kind of get a little nervous. But one of the most difficult situations that I have been in was when I had to leave my child behind in Jamaica. And it just struck me when I walked through the door that, this is something that I would like to share. So I left my child when he was 18 months old. And one of the image that is imprinted in my mind forever is when I said goodbye, he had had stretched out both of his arms, trying to get a hold of me, trying to hold on to me. And I cried all the way to the airport. I was in tears all the way. And I kept saying to myself, this is going to get better. This will get better. He'll eventually be here with me. But at that time, it just seemed so difficult because I was coming into a new country. Apart from my immediate family, I knew nobody else, that was here. I was thinking, what if, things didn't work out with my dad? Where would I go? What would happen? How would I get my child here? So on the plane, I met a gentleman who saw me crying. He took out $1, which I still take with me everywhere I go, and he said, "This is here. This is just, for you. Just, And he was sitting next to me. He said, "Take this and remember that things will get better. Even though it's difficult now, things are going to change for you." So it took me many years before I was able to get my son here. But as I said before, there was a light at the end of the tunnel because during that time, I thought that it was impossible, that things wouldn't happen or it wouldn't happen fast enough. It took me almost 10 years to get him here, but eventually he did get here. But it was a really difficult time. But through God and working hard, I was able to get him here. So I just wanted to share that. I'm sorry.
Don't apologize. I'm just teary-eyed already. I think that's a new record for the podcast.
7
I mean,
minutes in and we've got tears. So
Right, right.
isn't
and I'm like, I don't know what to say. I mean, I think that's an amazing testimony, Marcia, to not just the epitome of a difficult situation, but just kind of, I mean, when you describe him with his arms reached out, right, it makes me think of, when we go through hard times, right, I try to really imagine that is how God is. He's
Right.
like, come on, I'm but as a mom, I mean, even though you knew it was the best thing for him and you knew it was the best thing for your family, I give you a lot of credit for being able to be strong enough and brave enough. You say to me all the time, Joy, I'm not as brave as you. I'm not as bold as you. Are you joking, though? Like, that is brave and bold. I mean, come on.
I think in that moment too, like God sent you that person that gave you that dollar, gave you that, words
Hope.
of
Yes,
that
that was-
words
yeah,
of wisdom.
absolutely.
God was there right with you, like you're gonna be okay. It'll be okay. So I'm sure you're definitely not the only person that has gone through that, but at least he sent you that reminder.
Oh, absolutely. And I believe that
Right.
too. I believe that was God right there
Yeah.
when he put that person next to me and he was able to encourage me.
Right.
Yeah.
And
that
give you something
encouraged me.
tangible
Yes.
to carry with you.
carry with me,
It wasn't
yes.
the value of the dollar,
Right,
but what
right.
the hope that it represents.
Yes.
And knowing your story more and knowing the relationship you have with your son now, just the redemption of the
Right.
time that was lost and,
Right.
and all of that God has brought back for
Right.
you, I mean, is amazing.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
Absolutely.
part of what we immediately go to in our minds whenever we think about any difficult situation is the negative aspect.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what I went
Too
to.
hard for me. This is beyond my ability. How will I ever live through this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to reframe the negative connotation or take away the negativity from what we think about when we think about difficulties or difficult situations.
Right.
One of the things that I'd like to share that was difficult but proved to be not impossible in my life was the only 3 years of speech therapy. Going into New York every week after week from Pennsylvania by bus, leaving at 5:30 in the morning to make an appointment on 59th Street and not being able to talk at all for 5 years. I couldn't say my name. So the ability for me to share this on a podcast right now is miraculous.
Absolutely.
But at the time, I said, this is impossible. I will never talk again. Well, I was wrong. It was just very, very difficult, but not impossible.
Absolutely.
And that was just grit, fortitude, and determination to not have my ability to communicate taken away from me. So,
Right.
which leads me to my next premise. What are the benefits of being in a difficult situation? How do we grow? What do we learn?
Right.
Right? Because let's reframe this and take away the negative and say, well, what are the positives of being in a difficult situation?
You challenge yourself. I mean,
Right.
I think we always talk about on this podcast of being stagnant and being in one place. You don't grow. So I think that's one of the challenges. I mean, one of the benefits
Yeah,
of
right,
being
right.
challenged.
Right. Absolutely. And we talked about this week when we had our podcast guest, we talked a lot about being grateful now for the struggle and being
Right.
grateful for the tough things. It's hard to, when you're in it, to find the gratitude always, right? But now looking back, I would, I can speak for myself, I wouldn't change any of it. Although it was traumatic a lot of the time and a lot of that remnant is still there and it can get brought back up and make you feel like the difficulty is the present time when it's really something that's behind you. But so I think something good that comes out of it is just gratitude, the ability to realize how far you've come and how far God will carry you and, your ability to face the new stuff that comes in front of you, so. Anything from this side of the table?
So I can relate with both of you. I can relate because I was a teen mom.
Mm-hmm.
So I lived with my aunt and my uncle, and I had a baby. I graduated with my son in my stomach. So as me living with my aunt and uncle, we didn't always see eye to eye, my aunt. So me, after my baby was 1 month, I left. I didn't say, like, I'm leaving this house. I just left. Went to my aunt's house. I was still young, so my aunt took care of my son. But when it was time for me, like, so I could work and party, stuff like that, I was still
Right.
young. When it was time to get my son back, I had to physically fight her to
Wow.
get my cousin to fight to get him. They didn't want to give him back.
Wow.
So I can understand that, if he's doing this and they're fighting. So
Right.
that I
Wow.
can relate.
Yeah.
I was 6.5 when I got hit by a car. I had to learn how to walk, talk,
Wow.
everything all over again. So, but now look at me.
Mm-hmm.
It's a reason that I'm here, So, I can relate with both of you. It was difficult. It was,
It were
but
difficult situations, right? But you came through strong.
right, I came through. Like, you would never know that I went through anything like that.
Right.
Right.
So,
Right.
I think what happens when we go through difficult situations that we perceive as being impossible, we get mired down in the impossible aspect of it and don't visualize the positive outcomes or the future that this change holds. I mean, with any difficult situation, there is an inevitable change to us, our spirits, our heart, our
Right.
perception, our ability to cope. So without difficult situations, we don't evolve as human beings, and we don't develop the capacity to help others and to make a positive change in the lives of others through what we've endured or what we've thought was possible.
Well, and I think that's if you do the work, though.
Yeah.
Like if you don't do the work of facing the situation, whatever the situation is, then it can paralyze you, and then you remain stagnant in that spot. And I've encountered a lot of people in my life that get stuck in one part of their life. I myself was there when I first got divorced. I mean, I joke now, like, you couldn't stand next to me in line at 7-Eleven and I wouldn't tell you the whole story about, like, how horrible my marriage was and could you believe he did this and I kid you not. The 7-Eleven that I still go to. I mean, that is people know me by name, I feel like, because I was like, hey, you want to know how bad my life was? Because I was stuck in the difficult. I couldn't move past it. Like, my mind would not allow me to move past it because I hadn't forgiven. There was a lot of things, right? But I stayed so stuck in that for so long. Like, I might have functioned around it, but I didn't move forward until I really surrendered to the process of moving forward. So I think that that's an important piece. And I think the other side is, too, like, I learned this week when I was sharing a part of my story that I have not shared, was not in the book, like, different things. One of them just came out in the podcast, and then one came out in a conversation with a couple of the people at the table. Like, it just kind of came out, and the response, because I know it's there, that their faces were like, what? Like, they're looking at me like, what? And in my head, I'm like, oh my God, like, what is that reaction? Like, and the feedback was really like, I couldn't, they couldn't shake it, that there was such a difficult thing that goes on. So I feel like things go on within us that we may not realize that other people are carrying, which we talk about a lot on this podcast, that we should do all things in love. And I know it sounds corny, but I feel like if somebody's going through something like that, or they're feeling that kind of way, you may not see it. And so if you don't meet them with love, it could, there's no telling what that could do or what that confirms for them, right? Like, so I don't know. So that was just kind of heavy on me today. I don't know if anybody has any feedback, but
Susan, she's like, hey.
Alani, no, I'm just kidding. You talk when you feel to talk. Tamika, I feel as though you have something to say over there.
No, I'm just saying, you came out and said, you received things like, oh my gosh, what are you going to think? What do they think that I just said that? And I just feel like, I don't know. I just can't wait till the day where you don't feel like that anymore.
Yeah.
Because inside you feel like, oh my God, but outside we're all looking at you like, oh my God, I'm trying to be like Joy. I'm trying to get with Joy.
Right.
Look what she got.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's kind of like, you know.
Well, in the spirit of transparency, you know, what I said was that I walk around with, not all of the time, I have some deliverance around it, but I walk around with you're going to fail at this. You don't have this under your belt. You're no good at this. Just stop thinking you can do it. Like, you're like, who do you think you are? Like, all of those kinds of thoughts, whether it be professional or personal. And so for the response to be like, what? It does something to my head because it doesn't confirm, you know, I can seek out stuff that confirms that thought. Like, you know, somebody else would run the business better, or somebody else would be better in personal relationships, or whatever. I can find stuff. We seek stuff out to confirm the negative because that's what we're used to. That's how I grew up. I grew up with conditional love. Everything was conditional. So if you weren't thin enough, you weren't good enough. If you weren't pretty enough, you weren't good enough. Like, that was the message. So to undo 40 years of that is not easy work. But watching the reception of like, are you kidding? Are you talking about somebody else? Like, is there a different joy?
What did you think at that moment of the faces being like?
You know, the initial thought is, well, they just don't really know who you are. And then I'm healed enough to be able to say no, like to Susan's point of like, okay, let me combat this difficult stuff, right? Like, this doesn't match what I wanted to match. So how do I figure that out? And then I was like, okay, well then, Joy, maybe you're getting this wrong. Maybe you're getting this wrong and you're not seeing yourself through the appropriate lens. But that's hard work to do when you have believed yourself you know, as a deficit. Of course. And the world will give you things to confirm the negative because we're looking for it. You know what I mean? So there was many things that same day afterwards that was like, don't listen to them because look, here, I'm going to show you. No, you're still going to get rejected. No, you're still going to be like, all that stuff got thrown at me the same day. So it's just a testament to the work that we all still have to do. You know, those are my things, but we all have them. We all have fears. We all we all have that stuff.
You just triggered a really good thought and carryover of this conversation. How many people, well, 'cause I know all the ladies at this table are fighters and have triumphed over difficult situations they thought at one time were impossible, but we all know what that said, well, this is impossible. I'm not even going to try. I'm not going to do it. We all know people that have totally given up and didn't choose to reframe a difficult situation into an opportunity for triumph.
Well said.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Years ago, when my life absolutely disintegrated at every seam, my brother's best friend had given me advice, and he said, do you want this life event that you feel is impossible to define who you are for the rest of your time on this earth? And going through a difficult situation that is perceived as impossible, a lot of people really do let it define them, and they never get beyond what that situation was.
I think we've struck an Alani nerve.
And we've got a third Ryer in the room.
Right.
I'm going for goal of all five.
Yeah.
It's only because I'm going to talk.
Yes. Yay.
Just thinking of what I went through recently, and still to me to this day it feels impossible. But when I was talking to like one of my classmates, someone was like to me, I wouldn't be able to come back to school after losing my baby.
Right.
And that just showed me how strong I am to go like back to school. And on top of that, like I had a classmate who was pregnant, so for her it was kind of like not triggering for me, but I was kind of like, oh man, like I missed that. But my first 3 weeks, I didn't leave the house. I left the house once to go to the doctor's, and I was like so filled with anxiety that I couldn't be out the house for more than 20 minutes. So for me to now be able to like be out the house for 10 hours at a time is like a big accomplishment. But at the time it did feel like completely impossible to not cry every single second of the day.
Right.
Not to have my mind just overwhelmed with the thought of like, okay, what could I have done to
change it.
Yeah, to change it or to make him still be alive. And it was just, I don't know. It was difficult. And to this day, it's still difficult for me because I still have that thought in the back of my mind, like, okay, what if the next time I get pregnant and the same thing happens? Like, is it something with me that I can't carry the baby properly? So I'm trying to break myself out of that mindset of like, okay, you did something wrong. This is your fault. And I just think having supportive people in my life, that's what helps us when we have people who are 100% supportive and they're just like, it's okay to cry. It's okay to say how you feel. Like, I'm here for you. Take all the time that you need. So that's what I appreciate with here too, because that was another thing that was difficult for me, knowing that I started this job and then a week and a half after I left. So just like the feedback that I got from you, Joy, specifically, like you were just like, take the time that you need. When you come back, if you need an hour or two to get yourself together, go ahead. So everybody here is just like super supportive, and I feel like that's what's helped me get out of my difficult time a little bit more, because it's just like the support from my family and my boyfriend and you guys is just is amazing.
Well, and I'm glad that we could be there for you. I mean, you know, I certainly can empathize with what you've been through, and my message to everybody was, we're going to give her whatever she needs. So if that means you got to get up and walk out, if that means you got to, whatever it is, if it means you got to tap out for the day, like, you know, we are not going to be something that makes your difficult impossible. So we will always be the something that makes it possible for you to navigate it. And that's true of anybody and whatever they go through, you know. Loss is so hard. And that kind of loss in particular, we take it as we're the direct, you know, we're the vessel. So it's like, okay, well, I have to blame me. There's no one else to blame. And, you know, and I can relate. I went through that for a very long time. I mean, a really long time, until I really got to, you know, I got to a point where I could be at peace with her purpose. And that not everyone's purpose is to be here with us in that way. You know, but it took a lot of counseling. It took a lot of healing. It took a lot of time to get to a place where I could recognize that her call was to save us, because she did. You know, her passing allowed me to get out of a horrible marriage. It saved my ex-husband. It saved my boys. It saved me. You know, that was her purpose. And I said a few podcasts ago, you know, what prouder thing than to be like, well, my daughter came to do what she was called to do. And she did it. You know what I mean? So you'll get there. You just have to give yourself the grace to get there, and give yourself the grace of the process, because it is difficult. And some days will be easier than others, as you've experienced. And, you know, I still get triggered by pregnant women. Still to this day. Not always, not in every scenario, but there are times if I'm not expecting it, or if I'm just, something is rolling in my head, I'm like, oh. And it's not that we're not happy for them. It's not that we're wishing anything. It's nothing like that. And it's funny, not funny, haha, but like interesting, because we never talked about this, but we have people in common. And I didn't realize we had people in common until I saw his Instagram post at Christmas time. And I'm like, oh my God, that's Alani, you know. Anyway, well, we'll share. Yeah, we do. And he recently just posted that his wife is pregnant.
Oh, that's my cousin.
Yes. Yeah. And I was like, I immediately thought of you. And I was like, all right, God, you know, and so I do what I do, which was prayed for you to just be strong and to be okay with the fact that that's hard. It's just hard. It's hard for us. You know, so we're here for you.
Yeah, I feel like, just like listening to what you said about like my son serving a purpose, I feel like for the longest, because I grew up super insecure, so I always felt like, okay, you're not capable of love. Like, nobody can honestly love you. Like, they have a hidden motive. And I feel like that's the one thing that my son confirmed for me, is that the relationship that I am right now, like, he loves me unconditionally. He would never judge me for feeling any type of way that I feel. So I feel like he definitely did bring me and my boyfriend so much closer.
Right.
And
That's
he just
beautiful.
showed me that I'm capable of being loved. That is not any type of stipulation or like, oh, I'm only going to love you because there's something you can give me, you know?
Right.
So it confirmed that, and it's just
That's
helping
beautiful.
me understand my self-worth just a little bit more.
There's so much freedom in that. I don't even know if you realize right now how much freedom is in that, because once you can accept it, then you can give it to yourself, you know, and I feel like you're on the road to do that. It's hard for us to love ourselves unconditionally. But until we can, you can't really truly receive it from somebody else. And that's been a theme lately. So Like, all right, Jesus, we get it. We get
I
it.
receive it.
Yes, we do all things with love. Yes, we do. Whew.
Lonnie, you brought up a very, very good point about going through a perceived impossible situation. Is you don't have to go through any situation alone. You've reached out to your family, your friends, your colleagues. I think that is an important takeaway.
100%.
That whatever the motive is when we're going through any difficult or perceived impossible situation, we might pull back, hide, conceal for a variety of reasons: shame, embarrassment, just feelings of inadequacy or fear of being judged. And
sure.
that is not the way to go through any difficult situation. Drag people in, ask for help, knowing that you'll get the assistance or support or help you need. You just need to know your go-tos and where your cheering section is.
100%.
That was a really good point. I don't know if you knew you made it.
I feel like we fall into like self-pity quickly because of just how America is, or the world in general. It's just like when something bad happens, you have to cry, you have to be sad, you have to be depressed, and because we already have that like in our mind, it makes us get even deeper into
Absolutely.
what we're feeling, and it makes it like it makes it feel impossible to get out of that.
Well, it's a choice. I mean, joy, not I, but joy, the emotion, is a choice, right? And so my co-host, who's not able to be with us today, said to me something years ago. He probably doesn't even remember, but I was feeling sorry for myself about something. Something had happened. I don't remember what the something was, but I'm sure at the time it felt impossible. But he said to me, give yourself 3 minutes to feel sorry for yourself, feel the feels, do what you got to do, have a little pity party, and then stand up, get up, and keep going. Like, that's it. You cannot remain stuck in that. I feel so bad for myself. Oh my gosh, this is so terrible. And this is a confirmation of, and I don't know if he realized even the depth of that, because when we, our thoughts become our actions. So you can think things, right? Like the Bible says you sin in your mind before you actually sin, right? You've decided in your mind what you're going to do, and what you believe in your heart is what you do, right? So it's a choice to control those thoughts and not get stuck in that this is terrible, and then here's all the reasons why everything else in my life is terrible, or everything else is difficult, or I'll never overcome, or I'll never do all those things. So there's so much wisdom in that, to give yourself the moment to feel it, right? Because we're human. We're entitled to feel how we feel. We have feelings for a reason, but not allowing them the power to dictate then everything, and we talked about it on Wednesday too, like for those of you who know her, Joyce Myers, a minister. She's been a minister for 1 million years, and she's amazing. And one of the things that she said that resonated with me is that your do is not your who. So what we do, whether the good or the bad, is not who we are. Those two things are very separate. And for me, I took it a step further, that even what people do to us is not who we are, So I had a difficult, argument with somebody yesterday, and the things that were said in the heat of emotion made me think like, oh, that's who I am. I'm not worthy of somebody claiming, or I'm not worthy of, whatever. But then I had to realize, no, their due is not who I am. And I had to make a choice to not allow that to permeate my thinking, because it can, especially if it's somebody that is important and their opinion is important, So yeah, so it's a choice to not allow it to take hold. I know, I saw you taking notes.
Yeah. One of the ideas you just triggered is the way we deal with a first monumental, perceived impossible situation that really is difficult, not impossible, as it creates a perception of ourselves and our ability to deal with future impossible and difficult situations, and it becomes a learned behavior, and you have to decide, do I want to teach myself how to be resilient and overcome these situations, or do I want to teach myself how to just fold and give up and not triumph over the situations that are put in front of me? It becomes a domino effect either way. There's a popular meme online that it says, she did, so what did she could, so she did.
She
But
believed she could, so she did. Yeah.
yeah, but that could go either way. She believed she could fail, so she did, or she
Right.
believed she could succeed, so
So
she
she
did.
did.
So that
What you believe will always dictate what will be. Always. I mean, believe starts with B for a reason. There's always. I don't care where your faith is. I don't care how many initials are behind your name. I don't care how many accolades, whatever you do. If you believe you are not worthy, if you believe you can't show up, if you believe you're going to fail, you will. I mean, it just, there's no getting around that. You just will.
so
Oh. So what about some situations where it has felt difficult, it has felt like it would be impossible, but you were able to kind of be resilient in the process? You know, like Marcia talks about, it took a minute. You know, it took a minute to regulate once you got here, and you had to stabilize, and you had all of these factors besides the heartache with your son. You had all of the factors of being in this environment that was brand new to you. So, like, what about some of the smaller victories that you had in that? Like, how did that, or did it build your kind of perseverance and your resilience and change that dialogue you were saying to yourself? Not to put you on the spot, but to put you on the spot. Well, you've been way too quiet over there.
Just thinking.
I know.
Can somebody else?
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
for me, well, for me, I just feel like, you know, as far as me being a teen mom and, you know, going to my aunt and cousins for support and them trying to snatch my baby from me, it just made me realize that, no, this will never happen again.
Right.
My son will never live with anybody else. So that's why I am the way I am. I always want more. I do everything for my kids, and I just felt like it just showed me, like, no, you have to get it together.
Right.
This is what I had to do. So now, I mean, I'm not saying we're living the best life, but I make better choices so that I don't have to be there anymore. Like, I can never see anyone else taking care of my kids.
Right. Right.
So, you know, I felt like it was just like motivation for me. Like, we were house hopping. Even when I was snatching my son from my aunt and my cousin, I didn't have anywhere to live.
Right.
I just knew he wasn't living with them.
Right.
So, you know, I was like sleeping on people's couches. I was house hopping. I'm walking around middle of the night. Like, where are we going to go? Now I know that we're going to always have a home.
Right.
So it just made me go harder.
yeah.
It made me want
Absolutely.
to just be that best person, bring the best out of me. So there's times where a certain someone will be like, oh, you're at a new job now? Oh, this is why you can't stay there. No, I want more. So it
Right.
just made me want to go hard and grind. So
Tamika, going off of what you said, because at first, when I felt like giving up, I was just like, you know what, whatever, I don't even care. I'll sit on this couch for the rest of my life. But then I reminded myself that, okay, if he was here, would I have given up? No, I would want the best life for him. So now I feel like everything that I'm doing is for him. I'm still having it in my mind, like, okay, if he was here, this is what I would be doing. So I'm going to do it while he's not here, just to
Right. Honor that.
become a better person and do, like, okay, this is a person I would want him to see me being.
Right.
So
Oh,
It-
that's beautiful.
it makes you want to be even better. And
Yeah.
it doesn't matter, like, what type of loss it is. If it's, like,
yeah,
a family member or a friend or whoever, like, if you're going through something, you're just like, you know what, I want to be the best version of myself I possibly can be.
Right.
And that's what I keep in my mind. Like, this is who I want to be, and why would I compromise that because I'm going through a difficult situation?
100%.
and
Yeah.
Susan. So I was in a coma for a whole year.
Yeah.
Really?
I know. I didn't know that either.
I didn't
You're not the
know.
only one.
Wow.
Like, you know, so I was in the Philadelphia
Wow.
Children's Center.
wow.
I was 7 when I got hit out of my shoes. I was in a coma for a whole year.
Wow.
And it's just crazy because, like, I don't know. When I think about life, I just, like, always connect the dots. Like, what's the odds that you both went through that and you both know the same person? I just feel like, you connect the dots. So, with that,
Well, and I just so because Alani said, she started with us and then she was only with us a short time. And when she first started, I felt so compelled to give her the book. I'm like, why am I giving? Because I don't want anyone to ever think that just because we work together, you're like obligated to read the book or you're obligated to participate. And I was like, ooh, like it was such an internal battle for me. But, the spirit in me was like, give her the book, give her the book. And so when I knew what happened, I just broke down and I'm like, oh my goodness. And what came to me was, well, she's right where she needs to be. She's who better to help guide, right, than somebody who has lived the loss,
And at that time, I didn't know because it was just like I was new. I'm still getting to know you guys.
Right.
There's only but so much you can learn in a week and a half.
Of course.
So in my mind, I'm just like, oh goodness, this is not going to end too well because she just hired me. She's like, this girl, she can't even hold on to this.
Right.
But then again, like the feedback that I got, that confirmed for me that, okay, you're in the right place
Right.
that you're supposed to be in. Like if I was somewhere else, then it probably would have ended differently. But I feel like because I took that leap of faith, because people were telling me like, you're crazy, like why are you leaving this job that you've been at for all this time where you have these benefits and everything, like it's a stable job for you. Why would you leave it to go somewhere else in the middle of a pregnancy? And I'm like, I don't know, it just feels right. So it confirmed that it was the right decision, just seeing like the feedback that I've gotten and that I'm still
were right where you're supposed to be. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
so like I was saying, lost my train of thought a little bit.
I am sorry.
No, it's okay. So like, I was in a coma for a whole year. It just so happens that, the same people who were snatching my baby from me were the same people who took all my Christmas gifts when I woke up. You get what I'm saying? So, like, I had to learn how to walk, talk, do everything.
Wow. So we have more in common than
Absolutely.
we realize.
It's just that, I don't know. You'll never know unless I tell you. I still have the mark on my head. I still get headaches. My legs still go out sometimes. Like,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, which leads me to the next thought is bravery.
Right.
I mean, really difficult situations, impossible situations, really cultivate bravery and ferocity and a will to survive and
Perseverance.
Right. So, all these really not all of these positive attributes are the birth from these difficult or impossible situations that you've built up experiential knowledge to say, oh, bring on that impossibility. I got this. I know I've done it before.
Right.
I know I've made other choices in my life that weren't difficult to make, but I'm capable of doing it. So we just have to decide, are we going to let it be a positive force or a disabling negative force in our lives? So
I think for me, difficult situation has actually made me become mentally tough. I have that survival spirit within me. It makes me become a warrior. When I see something that I want, I fight for it. It has made me become more empathetic. Because sometimes when I see someone going through a situation that I've been through, I'm able to have compassion.
Right.
And I'm also able to advocate as well. So I think, that's what it has made me become. And, and it has actually made me become more faithful. Because a lot of times when I thought that things wouldn't change, and I got down on my knees and prayed, and I saw that there was a light at the end of the tunnel, and I said, hey, God brought me out of this difficult situation, and he's still carrying me. So a lot of times now when I do face difficult situations now, I'm like, I know God got me. I'm not even worried. And that's what I literally tell myself. I said, God, I know you got me. I'm not even worried about this situation. I'm just going to persevere, keep going. Because you have me, you have me.
And that's what God wants. That's trust. That is true trust. And that's hard to do. That's hard to do when the situation feels bleak
and I
at
sometimes
best.
feel apprehensive. When I have to start something, I feel apprehensive. I'm like, am I doing the right thing? Should I step back? Should I do this? And then I literally tell myself, God, you got me. You got me. So I know everything is good.
But I feel like the bravery is born from, at least from my experience, is from doing it even while all that stuff is shouting at you that you're not enough, you can't do it, you're going to fail. All these people are going to fail because you failed, and but doing it anyway. Like, that's where I feel like
Faith.
over the course of my life, not just my faith, but my ability to be brave, because to do things while you're screaming at yourself that you're not capable of it, but to do it anyway and to show up the best way you can show up, that's brave. People can't, the average person, I feel like, can't do that. You can't face those big scary things,
Right.
and not, as opposed to succumbing to them, so.
I'm gonna be honest. My heart's been thumping for like the past 10 minutes.
Okay, good, because I keep looking at you like I know you have
like-
something to say.
Because I'm the only one at the table that didn't really share.
I know, I'm
Because
like-
I was like, because I'm just listening to all you ladies, and I'm like, I think I'm just comparing, and I shouldn't do that because I'm like, what? I ain't never been pregnant. Like, I've never
Right.
been in a marriage, but that's not my path,
Right.
And well, this is where I am right now, so
Right.
I'm getting emotional.
Oh,
Gosh.
that's okay. That's all right. You in good company, honey.
Well, I wanted to cry because
Oh.
I'm so proud of you, Wilani.
Don't cry. 'Cause
Oh.
I'm
It's okay to cry. It is okay to cry.
Once in a while.
Yeah, I know, exactly. You're overdue. You're overdue.
I hate crying. I hate being so vulnerable in front of
know.
people.
Me too.
So
Yeah.
I always try to like, wait. Don't
Yeah,
It's okay.
but that builds those overcoming skills too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't even get what I want to say.
It's
out.
okay. Take a breath. Just take a breath.
Take your time.
We'll just
So,
we'll
like,
just chit chat.
yeah.
And then you.
Whenever you're ready, you can just
Yep,
jump in.
exactly.
So, like, I kind of feel like I relate with you as far as, like, the conditional love. So,
Yeah.
I was adopted. My aunt, she was, like, on the phone, like, oh, I'm done raising her. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I'm standing at the top of the steps, hearing her, like, what in the world?
Right.
Are you talking about me? And then, like, her friend will bring gifts for my cousins and not me.
Oh, God.
So, I have my baby. I left a month later. Never told her I was leaving. So, they're calling me like, where you at? So, when I do come to her, she's like, can you come to the house so we could talk? And she swore up and down. Oh, I never said. And I said, you know what? God knows what you said. You know what she did? She cried.
Mm.
Why? Because she knows. So, I don't know. Like, I feel like I love her,
Mm-hmm.
but from a distance. She made me doubt certain things. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, I relate.
Yeah.
I do.
Well, I have a lot of relationships like that in my life, and there's a lot of guilt associated with that, especially depending on who the person is, right? You feel like, no, I'm supposed to be a better whatever, a better daughter,
Yeah.
a better
Like, you're supposed to
niece,
be
a
my-
better whatever.
But I call her mom. You
Right.
get what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So, as my mom, you just made me feel like little.
Right.
Like, so.
I think we all have we all have a story, and we all have been on a journey, and how we come out, it says a lot about us.
Absolutely.
Because we could be somewhere else.
Absolutely.
I mean,
So easily be somewhere else.
I'm
Yeah.
telling you, Joy, especially for myself, I was abandoned by both my parents. So to see that I'm even here today is just a miracle.
I feel the same way.
So
I f-
I'm just grateful. I'm
Right.
grateful. There's a lot of gratitude. Sometimes people put strangers in your life that you don't think would be impactful, and it is. So I'm just humble and grateful. That's my theme. Just be
Right.
humble, be grateful. Be caring. Help others when you can. And I'm the kind of person that will jump to help other people because I know
What
that
it feels
what it feels like to
Absolutely.
be in a situation that is not good and that is difficult.
Right. Right.
You help to bring people out. You go through the. You know how Joy always says.
We go through to bring
To
through.
bring through. Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, I say all the time the fact that I escaped my childhood sane and emerged from my adulthood sane is miraculous. I mean, it's just miraculous because everything. I could have used every excuse to be terrible to people,
Me too.
Me
or
too.
to just not show up for
Right,
life,
right,
and hold on to. And I have people in my life who, to this day, still blame people from 30 years ago. You know, I'll never forget my ex-husband, his father. I only met him a couple times in our marriage, but the few times I met him, he would always complain about my ex-husband's mother. Now, mind you, they were divorced 30 years before I even met my husband. So, I mean, this had been long since over, like long over. And he was still stuck, like we talked about before, just stuck in 30 years ago. And he was literally on his deathbed, and we walked into the hospital room, and he was still complaining about what his ex-wife had done to him. And I stood in that moment and I said, I will never be that stuck that I'm still talking about my childhood, or I'm still talking about this person who did me wrong. And fast forward to my ex-husband, who to this day still says, well, it's Joy's fault. Joy didn't this, Joy didn't that, Joy didn't, you know. And I'm like, we've been divorced a long time, a long time. So the fact that you're still there, you know, it's just a reminder of how easy it is to get stuck and to just live there forever, you know.
The big thing
So.
is I hear from people, oh, I don't care. I don't care what happened. You know, I'm over it. But you're still talking about it.
Right.
So what you mean?
Right,
I know,
exactly,
right.
exactly.
Over it.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but some people don't.
I think I'm okay now.
Okay, good.
I'm sorry. I
good.
had to get, like, my
No,
heart was like, boom, 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 boom. I'm like, can I hold it together? I'm like, you know what? Just let it out.
I could tell it was something wrong
Exactly.
over
I
there.
know. I know.
Yeah. But I was gonna say, I think since, well, now, like, I'm in adulthood now, but like high school, starting until now, I think it's just always an inner conflict. I think that's my difficulty. Like, for example, I show a lot of love to people, but the reciprocation is not always there. So I think the biggest lesson for me has always been to love myself the way I love others.
Right.
So, yeah, I think I'm still on that journey. And, you know, that's difficult for me because I know how to show other people love through, like, cooking a meal or sending you a card or just giving you a hug. But how
Putting a sticky note on their computer.
I know.
yeah. But how do I love myself in the same way and even more, you know?
Right.
So, because at the end of the day, you lay with yourself. You have to
Right.
be content with yourself.
You take you everywhere.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
yeah.
can't escape us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like Alani said too, just self-worth, you know, it's gonna be a lifelong journey, but that's just my difficulty.
Absolutely. Well, I think we all struggle with that though.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard when we love in a certain way and then people who do love us back just love in a different way. And getting to the point where we can say this isn't helping me, or this doesn't feel good to me, and that makes you vulnerable because then you don't know how the person's going to respond, you know.
Or even people that do love us and they know they love us may not be able to say I love you or
Right.
give that hug or
Right.
show that kindness, but they do love very strongly. My mother's mother, they didn't say I love you. They were Eastern European. My grandmother was born in Slovakia, literally in 1894.
Wow.
But there was no I love you. There was
Right.
no hugging. It was very stoic. It was very flat.
Yeah.
And so somebody may love you, but just have no ability
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
Express it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
arrest it. And it's just, you know, it's an impossibility for them. But I don't know, maybe it's our jobs to help them make it not impossible.
Possible.
for them,
Right. Right.
You know? Wow, this was a heavy,
This
heavy,
is.
heavy,
It
heavy.
is. It is.
But from those 4 words in your blog about love winning, difficult is not impossible, it just really, it grabbed me, those words, and I
Right.
said, we need to explore this. And really, I'm just blown away. Like, we're here together for a reason.
Definitely.
This family that we are. We're here to make a difference,
Absolutely.
Definitely.
you know, for each other.
Well, and I'm
ourselves.
yes. Oh, I'm sitting here and something said like look down. So I have the blog printed, right? And at first I'm like, ooh, that's a grammar error, but it's really not. So the sentence is, so how do we move past what we desperately need, to Ashley's point, to a giver of that very need? Like, you know what I mean? How do we find ways to feel unconditionally loved when we're maybe not receiving that, but then how do we also then be a giver of that and not allow that person, whomever they are, to dictate who we are, right? So their do is not our who.
Right.
So how do we do that? How do you move past? And I think the answer is love. I think that's what the answer just is. And it doesn't always look like Hallmark Channel movie love. It's
Right.
just love. It's
Right.
being nice. It's being
You think so? You
empathetic.
do.
It's being willing to forgive somebody as they're moving through their fears, or they're moving through what is difficult and feels impossible, or what they've always known, and loving them anyway. You know, like I referenced an argument that I had yesterday, and it stung, and it, you know, my feelings got hurt, and I get my feelings hurt probably a little easier than most, but, my feelings were hurt, but I really got to a point pretty quickly that I was like, you know what, I just forgive them. Like, it is what it is, you know, and if that's truly how they feel, then God's in control. If it's not, and it was a fear reaction and it was a whatever, then God's in control. At the end of the day, I don't have control over this. I can't change your do. I can't do that. All I can do is continue to show up as me and choose not to be a hypocrite and be like, you know, I'm constantly saying all this, do this in love, do this in love. It's on my walls. It's everywhere. It's all that. And then be like, no, I'm sorry. You know what? You had a moment and whatever. I'm over you. Like, I'm not, that's not true to who I am. But that makes me very vulnerable because the flesh of me wants to be like, delete and block, like that's what I want to do, but I'm like, no, I still love you just as much as I loved you before you said that stuff, like before this thing happened, because love doesn't fail, it doesn't give up like that, but it's scary, it's difficult, but not impossible.
And it seems like it's impossible.
It does
sometimes, but it really just might be difficult, and really, really scary to go through. But
absolutely,
you know, you just help me reframe my thought process for the weekend of going to take care of my mother. So I'm like, I need to recall all of these words of bravery and kindness and generosity and kind of put that into my own caregiving this weekend.
Right.
And it's, you know, and
That's so
remember
true.
what we've talked about as I'm demonstrating care for someone who cared for me my whole life.
Right.
So,
Right.
you know, lessons learned. I need to take this with me.
Right. Well, self-care is important. I mean, it's important all the time, and self-care is beyond getting our nails done, getting our hair, you know, whatever. But it's being able to love yourself through those moments that are really hard. You know, and I failed miserably at that yesterday. I mean, when this argument happened, I was like, oh my goodness, everything is true. What they always said was true. Like, it confirmed all of that abandonment, all of that shame, all of that stuff, right? So I sunk into that immediately. I was not able to like rebound real quick. And it took really good, solid counsel to say to me, I'm going to need you to remember who you are. I'm going to need you to remember all of this, what Tamika loves to say, practice what you preach, like, you know, and it's not that I'm not because I'm a hypocrite. It's just that, you get lost in the, oh my God, in the wound of everything. So it was a lesson in like, okay, when this happens again, because it will, because it's life and people are human, how do I care for myself during this? You know, how do I say, okay, I'll talk to you tomorrow, you know, have a great day, and not sit there and go, you know, they're never coming back.
But it's so funny. I'm smirking because it's so funny how the same lesson will pop up in different forms, and you're like, okay, I've been through this, but I'm still doing this. Like, what is going on?
Right.
So you have to catch yourself like, all right, Ashley, like, you've been through this. Like, you got to do something different. So, because the lesson never goes away. It just keeps.
Not until you get it.
Yeah. So.
100%. 100%.
Awesome. One of the last things that I saw
That's
online
interesting.
as I was doing the little bit of research for our premise today was the first two letters of the word impossible, or I am. So if you change impossible to I am possible, a whole world of opportunity opens up to us.
That's awesome.
I thought, I said, I like that. That's,
Yeah.
you know, so I am possible. All things are possible. And to take that one step further is all things are possible with God at our side.
Amen.
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 So, wow.
Yeah.
Thank you very much
Ooh.
for the ability to really dig into this topic. And my goodness, like, thank you so, like, wow, I'm overwhelmed by
yeah,
the.
it was really good.
It was what was needed today
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
So even though this is a bonus episode, we close out every Influentials with a moment of gratitude. So something that we're grateful for on today or this week or in this life or whatever the case is. So,
Awesome.
okay, Marsha, go for it.
I am grateful for coming out stronger during those difficult times that I've endured. I'm grateful for surviving. I'm grateful for being a warrior.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm grateful for God continuing to guide me and just keep me going day by day.
I could just say all of that. The same way.
Ditto.
But I am grateful. You know, I'm grateful that I woke up this morning. I'm grateful that, you know, I got through everything that I went through.
Mm-hmm.
I'm grateful that I feel like I'm grateful that I do have a relationship with God, even though I didn't go to church yet.
You will. You will.
I'm grateful that, you know, my kids, both kids now, because I have two, but I'm just grateful that they're able to have a place that is their home. Because
Amen.
at one point we didn't have a home.
Right.
I'm grateful that I met you all.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Same
I'm just grateful for life, you know?
Amen. Amen.
Very profound.
So, there's a lot I'm grateful for on today, but I want to say that I'm grateful for your prayers last night, Tamika. I did not know that was happening, but it happened right when I needed it most. So, so thank you. Thank you for being obedient. I'm grateful for that because, you know, we all need strength and guidance. And I'm just, you know, I mirror what Marcia has said, and I'm so grateful for all of you women at the table and your bravery to sit here because it's not easy to do this and talk about these kinds of things, you know. So I'm grateful for every last one of you, and I'm just grateful that God has given us this opportunity, not just the podcast, but the company and just to be in our presence, and that He's constantly providing a way and He's constantly opening doors, and even when it feels like He's not, that He is. So I'm super grateful for that.
Amen.
Thank you.
I'm grateful for the ability to communicate, whether it's through my own spoken voice, augmentative communication, or written words. I've got a lot to say, and somebody says to me all the time, for somebody with a voice disorder, you never shut up.
And we thank God for that every day.
And I giggle because no matter the impediment or the impairment, I'm going to find a way to
Express yourself.
express
Be
myself.
you.
Right?
Exactly
Yeah.
how God made you to be.
So,
Amen.
you know, that's what I'm grateful for.
Wonderful.
Okay, I'm grateful for a lot. I definitely want to say I'm grateful for all of the positive relationships that I've had come my way, because I feel like if I still would have been still in the old relationship with friends or whoever when I lost my son, I would be in a horrible place right now. But I think because I have such positive people around me, and even though everybody's going through their own things, and you have your days where it's just I can't deal with anybody else's struggles, but I still have people who are just you know what, I'm still going to give her a kind word even though I know that I need a kind word. So I'm so grateful for just the positive relationships that I have right now. I'm definitely grateful for all the strength that God has given me to get through it, because every single time I hear I don't know how you're getting through it, I don't know how you're still going back to work and going back to school, and I'm just just got to do it. But God has been giving me the strength to do that. I'm just grateful for the fact that I have the strength to love myself more, because a few years ago, when I was super overweight, it was just, there was no self-love there at all. So I'm just grateful for the fact that I have that now.
Amen.
And I'm grateful for you all.
Aw.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I know, right?
I just, I think I'm great. Well, I know I'm grateful for, definitely the connections with you ladies. I mean, without Joy, I wouldn't be here, honestly, because I still go back to that interview with you. I don't know why, but I mean, obviously it was for a reason, you know.
Absolutely.
And I'm thankful for the conversation that we had here, the topic, my cleanse for sure.
Yes,
Gratitude
amen.
for the cleanse. But something small too. I always thank God for a hot shower. Now, I don't know if this is weird, but and I'll tell you something. Every time I go in the shower, I said thank God. Every time I step out the shower, I say thank God, because there's people out there that don't have hot showers.
Yep.
They may have
I've
a
been there
shower,
before.
cold
Same.
water.
Yep.
You know,
Cold water.
you never know, and this
Yep.
is just the
There's a lot of
simplest thing.
hopelessness now.
You know, so yeah, that's what I'm thankful for.
Amen. Amen. All right, everybody. So that's a wrap.
Thank you.
Thanks for being part of our bonus.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
See you later.
Thank you.